Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. I married Robert when I was 37. He was stable, successful, and everything I thought I needed after a messy divorce. His calm nature soothed the chaos I was used to. But over time, that calmness began to feel like emotional distance. Our conversations became routine, our intimacy nearly vanished, and slowly, I started feeling more like a roommate than a wife. Then came his son, Evan. He was 22, just out of college, and temporarily staying with us while he figured out his next steps. From the moment he walked into the house, something shifted. Felt it. Not just because he was handsome or confident, but because he looked at me like I was visible. Like I mattered. First I brushed it off. He was just being polite, charming. But then came the lingering glances. The way his eyes held mine a second too long. The way he actually listened when I spoke. Robert hadn't done that in years. Evan noticed the small things. A new haircut, my perfume, the way I liked my coffee. And he didn't just notice. He mentioned them. Complimented them. I told myself he was just being sweet, friendly, trying to connect with his stepmother. But deep down I felt it. There was something else under the surface. I caught myself watching him too. Not in an inappropriate way, at least not at first. But there were moments, quiet ones, when I found myself wondering what he was thinking when he looked at me like that. I felt guilty. This was my husband's son. I was supposed to be the adult, the responsible one. But I couldn't deny how alive I felt when he was around. He brought a spark into the house that had long since disappeared. The tension between us wasn't dramatic or loud. It was subtle, but it hummed beneath every interaction. Touch too long on the shoulder. A compliment that made me blush. A glance across the kitchen that held something heavier than it should have. I would lie in bed at night thinking about these moments, wondering what he was thinking, wondering why I didn't stop them from happening. I started to feel conflicted. Part of me wanted to create distance, to be the responsible adult. But another part, one that I didn't want to admit existed, liked the attention. I missed feeling wanted, desired. Evan gave me that, without even trying hard. I knew I should talk to Robert, tell him how disconnected I felt, try to fix things. But I didn't. Instead I stayed quiet. I smiled through the dinners, played the good wife, and let the undercurrent between Evan and me grow stronger. I told myself it was harmless, that it would pass, that I was imagining things. But deep down I knew I wasn't. And the worst part was, I didn't want it to stop. It started becoming harder to ignore. Evan wasn't just being friendly anymore. He was being deliberate. The way he touched my arm when he laughed, the way he leaned in closer than necessary, how he'd compliment my dress in a tone that didn't feel like something a stepson should use. I should have shut it down. I should have drawn a line. But I didn't. I let it linger, let it grow, because every time he looked at me like that, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Seen, wanted, alive. I caught myself dressing with more intention. Not revealing, but just enough to make sure I looked good when he was around. I told myself I was doing it for me, but that wasn't true. I noticed how his eyes lingered on me when I walked past. How he watched me, not like a boy looking at a mother figure, but like a man. It was dangerous, wrong, but it fed something hollow in me that I didn't know was still starving. He began staying up late when I did. Always around. We started having conversations that went deeper. He asked me about my life before Robert, my dreams, my regrets. He said things like, "You deserve more," with a sincerity that made me pause. One night he said, "If I were older when we met, I don't think I could have kept my distance." I didn't respond. I just looked at him. He didn't apologize for the comment. He just smiled like he meant every word. I started pulling away, but only just enough to pretend I was doing the right thing. I never really stopped him. I never said the words that needed to be said. I let the line blur. I wanted it to. I started avoiding my husband. Not in obvious ways, but I noticed how often I made excuses to not be alone with him. How easy it was to feel cold next to him after feeling fire near Evan. I hated the comparison, but it was there every time I was in a room with both of them. I told myself this would never go further. that Evan was just playing some kind of flirtatious game, testing boundaries. But then he started to touch me more confidently, hand on my lower back. His fingers brushing mine when we passed something to each other. Small electric moments that built pressure I couldn't release. I kept waiting for someone to break it. For him to back off or for me to come to my senses. But we were dancing on the edge now, and I was beginning to realize that I wasn't going to stop it. I didn't know how. Every moment alone with him was a silent invitation, and neither of us was pretending otherwise anymore. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about lust. It was about feeling something, and I was letting it happen. It was a night that shouldn't have happened, but everything led to it. Robert was gone, and the silence in the house felt different. Evan wasn't acting like a stepson anymore. His confidence had shifted. He no longer tested boundaries, he stepped right over them. There was no subtlety in his eyes, no hesitation in his voice. He sat close, too close, and told me straight, "I think about you all the time." I wanted to walk away. Should've. But I didn't. I sat there, heart pounding, and listened. He reached out and touched my hand, and I didn't move. I let it stay there, felt the warmth, the electricity. He leaned in and I froze. He kissed me and I let him. I didn't push him away. I didn't even flinch. Kissed him back. And once I did, it was like something inside me snapped loose. Every warning, every voice of reason disappeared under the weight of that moment. I wasn't thinking about titles or consequences. I was thinking about how badly I wanted to feel wanted. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't clumsy. It was deliberate, intentional, and wrong in every way that mattered. But in that instant, I didn't feel guilt. Felt power. I felt wanted. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. Evan wasn't gentle with his words. He wasn't trying to play innocent. He told me he had been thinking about this since the day we met, that he didn't care how wrong it was. He said he knew I wanted it too. And I hated that he was right. When it was over, I sat in silence. My chest felt hollow, not from shame but from the terrifying realization that I didn't regret it. Not then. Not yet. Evan looked at me like nothing had changed, like we had just done something inevitable. I couldn't look him in the eye. I didn't know what to say. I didn't say anything. I just got up and walked out of the room, heart still racing. Everything felt different after that. My skin felt hot, my head was spinning, and yet a part of me still burned for more. I told myself it was a one-time thing, that I let the moment get to me. But I knew better. I didn't resist him. I didn't fight. I participated fully, knowing exactly who he was, knowing what it meant. I couldn't blame the alcohol or the loneliness or even him. I made the choice. I lay in bed that night, not beside my husband, but alone, replaying everything. Every word, every touch, every breath. I should have been filled with regret. I should have been sick with guilt. But I wasn't. I was calm, quiet, numb almost. I knew I had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. The problem was, I didn't feel like turning back. The next morning felt unreal, like I had stepped into someone else's life. Evan acted like nothing was wrong, like what happened was natural. He smiled, made coffee, spoke casually, and I just nodded along, unsure of how to exist around him anymore. I couldn't meet his eyes. My body still felt the echo of what we'd done, but my mind had started catching up, and all I felt was weight. Heavy, choking guilt. Robert was due home that evening, and the closer it got, the more my stomach twisted. When Robert walked through the door, everything inside me clenched. He kissed my cheek, told me he missed me, and asked how things had been. Smiled. Lied. Said everything was fine. I stood there, pretending nothing had happened in the house we shared. But inside I was unraveling. I watched Robert talk to his son, unaware of the betrayal sitting right in front of him. I hated myself. Hated how easy it had been to destroy something sacred. Evan started texting me when Robert was home. Short, dangerous messages. I can't stop thinking about last night. You looked beautiful this morning. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete them either. It was like I couldn't let go. I told myself it had to stop, but part of me wasn't finished. I didn't crave the act anymore. I craved the feeling, the validation, the attention, the rush. I began to avoid Robert, found excuses to stay in separate rooms, cut conversations short. The guilt made me cold, distant. One night, Robert mentioned how much closer Evan and I seemed lately. He smiled when he said it made him happy to see us getting along. I had to bite my lip to keep from crying. He had no idea that his wife had betrayed him, not just with another man, but with his own son. The betrayal was layered, ugly, and impossible to erase. I started spiraling. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was walking through life wearing someone else's skin. Evan didn't stop. He still tried to pull me back in. Touch here, a private comment there. I snapped at him once, told him it had to end, that it was a mistake. He looked hurt, confused. He didn't understand why I suddenly changed when everything between us had felt so real to him. He started pulling away, colder, less present. A tension filled the house that Robert didn't notice, but I felt it in every room. Then it happened. Robert saw one of the messages. I'd missed deleting it. It wasn't explicit, but it was enough to raise suspicion. He asked questions. I denied. I deflected. But I saw it in his eyes. Something had shifted. Trust cracked. He didn't press, but he didn't believe me either. I could feel it. Evan moved out shortly after. No confrontation. No closure. Just silence. I haven't seen him since. Robert and I still live under the same roof, but something's dead between us. I carry the truth alone now, buried under layers of shame and silence. What happened wasn't love. It wasn't worth it. It was a selfish escape from emptiness, and I let it happen. And that's the part I'll never forgive myself for.